My name is Drew Durham. I am a student at San Jose State School of Library and Information Science. I'm here at either a public venue like Reach and Teach or at a book club for adults to talk about the Native American experience and Native American identities in the context of the Mayflower, the first Thanksgiving, and some contemporary writers' perspectives on the matter. Native Americans ruled the Western Hemisphere for thousands of years. In 1492, when Columbus famously sailed the ocean blue, everything changed. Upon first contact with European colonists, Native American experiences, cultures, and identities drastically changed, and these adaptations continue to this day. Do you remember in your schooling when you had a class in colonial American history when you learned about the first Thanksgiving? Well, chances are your perspective is going to change if you read Nathaniel Philbrick's Mayflower. In this book, it focuses on the time of the Mayflower, the first Thanksgiving, and the decades beyond. The colonists aboard the Mayflower survived a dangerous and terrible journey across the Atlantic Ocean from England to what is now Massachusetts. Upon reaching Massachusetts, they were greeted by a much worse and much harsher winter than they were expecting and that they were prepared for. They survived, some Puritans say, thanks to gifts from God, but were really gifts from local Native American tribes like the Pokanoket. The Mayflower arrived in 1620. Less than a year later, in 1621, the first Thanksgiving occurred over several days. The participants were 4 colonists and around 100 Pokanoket Indians. The celebration feast happened in either late September or early October of 1621, because that would have been the time around the first harvest. There were said to be several wild turkeys in the feast. Unfortunately, the peace and camaraderie did not last more than 50 years between the Pokanoket, local Indians, and the colonists. Many more immigrant colonists were coming over and needed more land and natural resources. Therefore, natives were kicked off their ancestral lands and forced to either flee, fight, or convert. Those who converted to Christianity were not called savages, but everyone else was. If you converted, most Native Americans that converted for cultural survival. As Philbrick writes, instead of replacing the old ways, Christianity became for many Indians the way to preserve native cultures. The so-called savages, and even the converted praying Indians, were often hunted down and massacred for their natural resources and land. The resulting battles and wars are documented very well by Philbrick in his book, The Mayflower. Please read that book for any more additional new discoveries that challenge our preconceptions about what was the first Thanksgiving, how the Mayflower was, and all the time around King Philip's War. Some stereotypes survive to this day. including the identities of several prominent national sports teams like the Redskins, the Braves, the Indians, and the Blackhawks. The modern Native American storyteller, short story writer, novelist, and poet Sherman Alexie says that both romantic and insulting Native American caricatures, stereotypes, and labels are both small disservices and small injustices to Native Americans, as they are somewhat closely related and identified with other Americans, especially in terms of their brokenness, their quest to achieve identity, and their quest to have community. The stories in blasphemy, the stories in our second book, Blasphemy by Sherman Alexie, his 2012 collection of new and selected works, they start and begin with affirming the brokenness, alienation, and dissonance that Native Americans feel, that some Native Americans feel in today's society. He usually delivers new insight with witty punchlines. Alexie's characters are full of complex issues, such as some characters refuse to disguise or compromise their Indianness, even though they might not know what that Indianness really is or what it really means. As Alexie writes in his short story, Search Engine, colonized, genocided, exiled Indians formed their identities by questioning other Indians' identities. Self-hating, self-doubting Indians turned their tribes into nationalistic sects. But who could blame us for our madness, Corliss thought. We are people exiled by other exiles, by Puritans, Pilgrims, Protestants, and all those other crazy white people thrown out of a crazier Europe. We who were once indigenous to this land must immigrate into its culture. This is just one of the discoveries and explorations of Native American identity in Sherman Alexie's Blasphemy. In addition to exploring Native American identity, Sherman Alexie's Blasphemy leaves its readers with questions about their identity, community, and where they belong. Our next book is Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko, a young adult to adult crossover novel published back in 1977. Teo, our mixed-blood, broken and troubled protagonist, has trouble getting himself back into civilian society. His mixed heritage and the resulting identity issues contribute to Teo's difficulties living on the reservation after being discharged from the Veterans Hospital, where he was recovering from being a POW, a prisoner of war, from the Japanese during World War II. Mundane events trigger Teo's post-traumatic stress disorder. As a result of the war experiences he had. By way of trying to help himself, he self-medicates and also isolates through binging on alcohol, which leads to alcoholism. As a way of healing, Teo visits a medicine person, and his life evolves as Teo changes thanks in part to traditional ceremonies and also to his spirit, because of his spirit. The book is interseeded with poetry that shows Teo's inner identity dialogue. Ceremony discusses transitions and identity, community and belonging, boundaries and consequences. Silko's classic leaves the reader with lessons learned and a clear view of our broken, whole, and changing identities. To fully experience ceremony, please read Silko's classic that Sherman Alexie calls one of the greatest novels of any time and any place. Last but not least is The Roundhouse by Louise Eldridge. Another young adult crossover. This novel focuses on Joe Coots. This book is a 2013 American Library Association Alex Award winner, which means the book was given a distinguished honor of being one of several books to be chosen to be a book about adults that has specific and special appeal to young adults. Roundhouse discusses the daily life of today's Native American reservations, especially tribal laws. Early in this brilliant murder mystery book, our narrator, Ojibwe Indian early boy named Joe Coots, who is writing this retrospectively as an adult, talking about his experiences in 1988 when he was a young child, in 1988, where most of the book takes place. Early in the book, he learns of the violent assault that victimizes his mother, Geraldine. Due to his skilled and witty gumshoe investigative work, he finds many clues that leads the reader in suspense until its very powerful end. Along the way, he meets some troubles and some very murky issues, including the quandary of the powers of tribal versus state versus county jurisdiction for such crimes, as well as the morality of revenge and the perils revenge have for him and his family. The beyond shocking ending will leave you seeking Eldridge's other books and further insight. So to experience this great book in all of its suspense and depth, please read The Roundhouse. I also suggest Tony Hillerman's as another Native American murder mystery writer. I hope you have learned or gained some insight into the Native American experience and some Native American identity issues that happen today. Thank you for listening to this book talk, and I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And remember to give thanks to all the Native Americans in our nation. Thank you.